A quick disclaimer. The content you find here is neither intended to be therapy or diagnosis. It is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. This is Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. Welcome, everyone, once again to the Me, I Am Mental podcast. I said May, but I meant me. Me, I Am Mental podcast. My name is Darren Collins, and also off to my far left, I have
Charles Adede, co-host. Today we have Amwayi Tsuma.
Amwayi Tsuma.
Who is
going?
All right, we got it, all three of us.
Yes.
Amwayi is going to discuss with us the topic of meditation, specifically Vipassana meditation. Is it okay to say Vipassana, or is it?
So one thing I've discovered is that there are different accents.
Okay.
So Vipassana. I realized people from Burma, Sri Lanka, they have a different intonation when there's a double consonant.
Does anybody say Vipassana?
Okay, there is that. You just did.
Yeah.
I did, okay.
There's no right or wrong.
There's one, okay.
Yeah. But yes, Vipassana meditation.
Yes, which is, I think many people now know that mindfulness, meditation are touted as real, I think, tools for dealing with mental health. Cultivating mindfulness generally contributes significantly to well-being, and also in some ways also just helps us deal with stress and related issues. I think as we go into this, we will be able to see maybe in a little more detail, explore the technique of Vipassana. And
Vipassana.
Yes.
I'm glad to contribute.
Yes. And so, but before we get into all that, Darren, you are
Charles?
going to talk to us about Me, I Am Mental, what we do.
Oh, we're going to do some of that. Ladies and gentlemen, Me, I Am Mental is sort of like the website is meimental.me, which sounds awfully egocentric. Lots of me's in there. But basically, it's about mental health, and mental health being for everyone, and not thinking of mental health as something that's crazy or unapproachable or scary, but something that's more like health in general, that exists on a spectrum, where sometimes just keeping tabs on your physical health by going to the gym is also something we can do for our minds, where we can actually explore how to keep our minds more healthy and more sharp. And also for everyone. It's not just for people who are struggling, but for people who want to sort of get ahead of it, and know the signs and the symptoms. But we're lay people. Charles and I don't really know what we're talking about, but we're sort of fans. We're sort of advocates. We're people who are interested and believe that it's something that's helpful for everybody. So if you go to meimental.me, that's sort of like our clearinghouse. That's sort of like our hub where you can find all the social media links, as well as the articles and helpful tips and that sort of thing, and just some general information. But that's the place to go, to Me, I Am Mental. And so having said that, let's just get right into it.
Okay. So typically we start, like all podcasts, with getting to know our guests, and we allow the guests to tell us everything about themselves, starting from the grandparents.
You don't have to tell everything.
Yes. What's the PG rating?
Yeah, let's go with
for our audience, so that I know how to filter.
Yeah, just the highlights. We don't want to diverge from mental health too much.
Yes.
but yes.
Yeah.
So let's start with that. Perhaps it would be good to know a bit about your childhood, just those usual details that give people a sense of who they are, who this guy is, and
the life of Amwayi Tsuma.
The life of Amwayi Tsuma in a nutshell.
Yes. So thank you. So anyway, Amwayi Tsuma. Amwayi Tsuma was born in early 80s, 1981 to be specific. When I was born, my parents were living in Nairobi, but my dad had just been posted to Kisii town. He used to work with Kenya Commercial Bank back in those days. So he moved there, the family moved there, I think for a couple of months or 3 months before he was posted again to Kisumu. So my life essentially begins in Kisumu, where we stayed for about 3 years, so no memories there at all. Just bits and flashes here and there. After which we moved to Nakuru town. So that's where I started my education in pre-primary till 1987, where we moved to Nairobi. And I think that's where now my self-awareness, now my memory can start picking up key events in my life. And I remember those days we moved into a very, some might call it privileged neighborhood, but looking back, it was a very lonely life because no neighbors to play around with.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'd spend most of my days as a child alone or with books. So either in my head or in books.
Which neighborhood was that?
This was Lavington along Convent Drive.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah, before it became a bit of a concrete jungle.
And how?
Yes. Actually, I remember one event from my childhood, how I got my first experience of swimming. It was actually in the Nairobi River.
Oh,
Believe it or not. But it was clean enough.
Yeah,
It was clean enough back then.
Nowadays, that would be your first experience in some sort of like torture.
I
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Yeah. And actually, all that land has been grabbed. So, yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, that was early childhood. So, having a lot of time to myself and looking back, I recall that I had to learn to know how to entertain myself, how to be self-reliant, because all my other siblings were much older than me, so they were either in boarding school or college. And so over the weekend, my mom has gone for her errands. My dad, of course, has gone to do his things. So I'm left in the house and I'm like, what do I do? So if I'm not reading, so I'd play around the compound, walk around the neighborhood. Yeah, basically that. So that was pretty much early childhood. I went to Lavington Primary School, an awesome place where I met awesome people, many of whom actually we are still friends to date. And it's interesting, the topic that we have today. When I became much more aware, looking back, I can trace early experiences of social anxiety.
Oh.
Yes, because you can imagine coming from a very enclosed sheltered life, and being thrown into a school with many people who come from different backgrounds, and they're all boisterous and extroverted, and I was very introverted. So that was a bit of a challenge back then. So that was primary school. Being a boy, of course, football was my thing.
Is it still?
I watch, I no longer play. Actually, I played for quite a bit.
Okay.
Yes, so playing football, hanging out with friends, the usual childhood things. Not much to write home about during those years. A few experiences here and there that might have stood out. And one in particular, which interestingly and in relation to what you're talking about, was in class 4, where back in our days, caning was a thing.
I know, I know.
And,
You whoop a child, you shook
yes.
them by. Yes.
And I remember on this occasion, the teacher, I think, went overboard. She was using this pipe, which I think had a crack somewhere along it, and it gave me a scar on my thigh. And that gave me some trauma.
Okay.
Yeah, and I realized much later in life how much that little incident impacted and shaped my life and relationships later.
Sorry, I just want to interject with
Yes.
a question. When you did you raise
Yes.
it with anyone?
So I raised it at home, and our tough parents tough it.
Tough it out.
Yeah. You must have done something wrong.
Oh yeah, it's
Yes.
thrown right back at you.
Yeah.
You deal. Okay, go on. So you realize it later on.
Yeah, much later on after. Okay, let me not preempt what will come later.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so Lavington Primary School, I finished in 1995. Then 1996, I joined Upper Hill High School, which was also another culture shock, because now Lavington Primary School was, being in Lavington was, it had
It was
different
soft.
type of, yeah, exactly, it was soft. Then I come to Upper Hill and we have a mix of everyone.
Yes.
A few of the soft, some from the not so privileged, and then some you're like, oh.
I know.
Whoa. Yeah, so that was also an interesting experience, high school. And one thing that also recall was interesting for me, and coping mechanism that I came up with. So back in those days, prefects had the right to issue permission. What is it called? Punishment.
Punishment.
Oh.
Punishment on students.
Great idea.
And my little ego could not take that. So a coping mechanism that I came up with, which was a trend in that school back then, was truancy. So
You just out.
Yeah. So
Now we see
when
you,
you know
now
there's
we don't.
trouble, which looking back is a bit of escapism, but yeah. Yeah. So actually.
So that was Upper Hill. So you would
Yes.
flee to where?
So in those days, wow, it was a number of places. One place was, Madaraka Estate.
Yes.
So some fellow classmates and their neighbors and students from other schools.
So just roll down the hill.
Yeah, roll down the hill. You'll find people from Milimani High School, from Jamhuri High School, from Parklands. There used to be this pool table in one of the houses, so we'd play pool, hang out there.
Okay.
On other days, we'd go to, YMCA, swimming, or Relos Club, swim or hang out at Huru Park, or just go hang out at university grounds.
Would you be in uniform?
Yes. So,
You guys are brave, aren't you? Okay.
well, those were different times. Definitely that can't happen now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, of course, I started hanging out with different types of crowds, moving from the softer crowd and hanging out with the tougher crowd. And then, incidentally, in that same year, we moved from Lavington because my dad retired from the bank. So we moved from the bank house to the house that he had bought, which was in Buruburu Estate. Now this is in Eastlands, coming from Lavington. Now this was also another interesting transition for me.
You can
Coming
imagine.
from space and few people
to
to a neighborhood where
no space. Almost.
you open the window and you see many young guys out there playing basketball and making noise. And I'm like, hey, what's up with these guys? Why are they so loud?
Basketball is always a thing in Buru, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So actually, I ended up playing basketball in high school, and I was in the high school team despite my diminutive figure. Yeah. So I think looking back, playing sports really helped me in terms of developing social skills, opening up to people, developing confidence. So I played basketball, I took up martial arts, and the driver for martial arts was an interesting event. I was mugged one day walking home from school.
You decided it's never going to happen again.
Not going to. I need some skills.
So right now, let someone try. There'll be someone-
I don't think I have.
Oh, you
Haven't practiced in like 20 years.
Okay.
Yes, so pretty much most of high school, as I mentioned, was truancy. So I went from being an A minus B plus student to C minus D plus during Form 2, Form 3. And something that my father mentioned later after I finished high school, which Form 4 I decided to start boarding because me and my desk mate were very close friends to date. We decided, we need to get serious. So we got a bit serious and studied and managed to get a good enough grades to take us to university. So,
Just script through.
yes. So when my dad saw the results, he was like, whoa, I'd actually given up on you. Yeah, so that was essentially it. Then, of course, got to university, the usual campus life. And I think looking back, that is when now I remember experiencing something that I could not understand at that point. I think I was in second year. And I remember feeling this weight and heaviness on me, and I asking myself, where is this coming from? There's nothing wrong in life, but motivation is lacking and all that. And those are the days where if you will mention anything like depression or mental health, you'd be told, those are Mzungu problems. I don't know.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. In addition to.
So there's that stigma where now there's no space for you to
Explore.
like, there's this issue that I'm facing. How do I deal with it? So in any case, coping mechanism was, of course, work hard, drink hard.
May I just ask, was there a specific trigger, or it was generalized? It was just this the blues, you know?
Yeah,
you're not
exactly.
sure,
It was
you
this
can't-
generalized
Okay,
blues. Yeah,
okay.
because I couldn't. I used to journal, and you try to figure out what is it.
Moving from Lavington to Brew.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, yeah.
That is
that would trigger.
and the marking
Yes.
incident.
So maybe I
I think I've
underestimated the
already got your
impact.
childhood figured out.
Yes. So made it through campus. By the time I was finishing campus, I had a purpose that I'm not going to work in a big organization, having done internship in a couple of companies, that is Mumias Sugar Company and BAT. And having experienced that culture where you're just a cog in a machine. There are manuals, so you come in, you implement what the manual says, you write a report, you wait for the next task. I remember feeling that I was like, man, this is such a waste of all that study that I've done. I felt a need to be challenged. Now, during campus years, I lived with my sister while she was doing her MBA, and in my curiosity is to go through some of her books.
You couldn't help yourself.
Yes. So I got interested in business and marketing. So after campus, I started business with a couple of friends in town, just doing printing, supplies, general hustle. And one of the mentors that I was lucky to have during that time, who was a friend to my sister, told me, if you want to do business, why don't you join this company now, which was my first employment gig. It was a research and consulting company, which I think was just about 2 years old. Said this would be a good place for you to learn the basics of business. So
Because you're employed, but you're in touch with every aspect of it.
yes, exactly.
Yeah?
So got into research, learned quite a bit on the job. Of course, being a small company, a growing company, you're exposed to everything. So I'd say, fortunately for me, as the company grew very fast in like 2 years, I went from being like a junior executive to being given responsibilities as a manager.
The corner office.
Yes, actually by the third year, I had a corner office. Yes, right next to the CEO.
Yes.
Yeah, so those were interesting years. So as I mentioned earlier, my life was work, and then during the weekend,
That is booze.
yes, the party lifestyle.
Where did you
Yes.
party at?
So in those days, from town to Westlands, I remember I was regular, if you remember Resoras, and there was Black Diamond and Red Tape.
Oh, you're the guy.
So
Okay, you're the.
That is
some of
called
this. Okay.
Red Light District.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So actually, I remember I was so common at Resoras that anytime I'll get in, I'd get a complimentary meal.
Oh,
Yes.
so you really partied.
This guy.
I really partied.
partied.
Yes. Yes.
It sounds very incongruous
With the
with
person that
the
you.
whole, the
Yes.
whole story. And this partying animal.
Yes.
It's like you were. I don't know who was partying. Anyway.
Yeah. So looking back, actually, I think the partying was more of like just to get me through, to not have time to be on your own.
Oh yeah.
Because when you're on your own, the restlessness, the agitation.
They're trying to figure what is this.
The mind will not let
sense
you
of-
rest.
Yes.
And
yes.
since you don't have the tools to self-observe, and there's
you can
money,
go
and the
mad.
culture is, the culture supports that lifestyle. Because your friends will call you, hey, where you at today? So that's what we do. So one of the first things that made me really question myself was my relationship with the mother to my son. It fell through in 2010.
No, wait. Before we get
Yes.
there,
Yeah.
just so I just a few
No
questions.
problem. Yes.
So your dad
Mhm.
during and you I haven't heard you say much about
Yes.
your mom
Uh-huh.
and
Yes.
your
Siblings.
your relationship with them.
Yes.
I'm just curious to know during the campus years, the partying time,
Yes.
how did like generally interact with you? Was it cordial? Were they worried? How was that?
So it was a mix of so through campus there were, let me say, without any disrespect, kind of almost aloof. I think I was also very independent because I think I'm the second last born out of 9. Maybe they were already tired.
Don't worry about that. I am the 9th out of 10.
Yes. So, and I remember during family interactions, my siblings saying how for them growing up was military camp.
Yes.
They used to be clobbered and set straight. For me, it was like,
Guy, yeah, you do you.
yeah, you
grow.
do you. Yeah.
You analyze this grow.
Yes. And I think also at a certain stage, the broader family was going through its own upheavals. So maybe that might have also contributed to my states and not having the tools to cope. So for me, it was just hang out with the boys. And so I remember during that phase, I'd spent most of my time outside with the guys from the neighborhood, not really with the family.
I see.
And so if a typical day, if let's say I'm not going to college, wake up at 10, went the base, hang out with the boys, go home for lunch, come back to base, go look for something to drink or chew, and come back home 10, 11, or go out. So that was typically.
You didn't want to be at home? Like,
I didn't feel
or
that
you did, okay, I see.
there's no common. I didn't feel close to the people at home per se in terms of rapport. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's basically, that was those years. The one person I can say I was close to was my elder sister, who I think was like my guardian angel throughout the years. So when she moved out from Buruburu, now that period is when now I think
You got lost a bit.
Yeah, I can say I got lost.
You didn't have
Yes.
your anchor.
Yeah, and actually one point I forgot to mention was now to get me back to anchor, I moved out of Buruburu and went to live with her in State House. So that's when now I
You
could
say
again.
State House.
Not State House, the State House, but State House, the neighborhood. State House, the neighborhood. Yes.
Hey,
Yeah.
I was about to stand at attention, man.
Yeah, so yeah.
Okay.
So that helped me at least focus more on studies and get out of that loop of daily intoxication and
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty much it. And yeah.
And then you met the
Of
mother
course,
of your.
Yeah, just going, actually, resorts. Out, yeah, you see a girl, you like a girl, you start hanging out, things happen along the way, and one day she calls you and says, oh,
This is the situation.
this is the situation. And amidst all that, looking back, I can say I had some noble qualities. So I was like, yeah, I'll stand by you. There's no problem. So what is your asked her, what is your decision? Because I will not impose a decision on her. And she was adamant that, yeah, I'm keeping the baby. So supported her through that, and the boy is now 16 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so that all happened. So all these simmering issues that
I'm just
are not being
curious again
issued.
to know. So you guys did not get together. You just decided, okay, we will disparent,
Yeah.
but separately.
No, so what happened? Actually, the intention was to get together, but this is another milestone. I don't know how I could forget this. 2009. For a couple of years, my parents had been ailing. My mom with diabetes and related complications. So in February 2009, she passed on after and I remember actually those were the first days I realized that I used to experience anxiety attacks. We had been in the office. Of course, you've gotten calls and messages that, oh, mom is in the hospital, we need money, because back then, of course, money. The work situation was also very stressful. So I remember these days I'd be at the desk and I'd just freeze. The phone is ringing and I'm like, man, I just can't deal with that right now. Yeah, so I remember that period was quite tough. So that was February, mom passed. I'm not sure if I actually ever dealt with it properly, because it was a period where I was still heavily.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah. So that happened, and then in October, our dad also passed away. He had cancer.
The same year?
Yes.
Ooh.
So
Ooh,
actually,
that's a blast from a double barrel shotgun.
yes. So actually, looking back, I
Ooh.
think all the things that I did that probably led to the relationship going down were unskillful ways of trying to call for help.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something about your parents.
Yes.
So they were ill, gravely ill at the
Yes.
same time.
Yes. So actually, when we were burying my mom, my dad could not attend the gravesite because he was in the bed. So actually, yeah.
That's a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So,
and you had to. Okay, on the one hand, you're providing like financial support. Were they? But how are you managing like the emotions and the rest of it?
Yeah. So now that was.
Or were you just trying to like keep?
So the emotions, like
sort
there was
of
no space for dealing with emotions.
for dealing with that?
Yeah,
You're just
so,
being practical most of the time.
What can be done is done, and the rest of the time is just escape.
I see. Yeah. That's one way of doing it, I
Yes,
suppose.
yeah.
Yeah. When it like a lot. Suppose when you're crowded out like that.
Yes.
You just do what can be done, and you
and switch off. So actually,
okay.
So the end of that 2009 period, of course, with those challenges and unskillful behavior, by the end of 2009 into 2010, the relationship
collapsed.
Yes, and I remember it made me reflect, because I was not feeling. The emotions that one would normally feel, and you can bring them up and say, okay, there's this emotion, I need to deal with it this way. I didn't have that capacity.
Wow.
Yes, and I remember asking myself, why is this? And that's when I became interested in consciousness, psychology. So
was it? So you were feeling something, but you couldn't put a label on it,
yes.
or you were not. So you were feeling something,
yes,
but you didn't know.
I could feel something, but what is it? How do I deal with
I
it?
see.
Yes. So, of course, being in research and being a bit of a bookworm.
That was your natural thing. Is to
So, and the internet was there, so started. Previously, I'd read books about, there's this, I remember one book that really impacted my life was a book by a guy called Edward de Bono, called The Six Thinking Hats. Basically how to apply different mindsets in different situations, but none of those situations was emotional. It was all functional. But one thing it gave me was an awareness that the mind can be used as a tool. So I remember having a meeting with myself and asking myself, okay, doing an analysis, like it seemed to be doing things in a way that is not yielding good results. Why? So I walked back and asked, what tools do I have for conducting life? And it was, I have the mind. And I realized at that point that I know nothing about the mind. So
first, let me interject with something.
Yes.
So, going back to what you said about emotions.
Yes.
I've always said that one of the biggest challenges men have.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Toxic masculinity.
Is that they don't know their emotions. They feel things, but they probably only know anger.
Yes.
And what else? What do men know other than anger? There are very few emotions they can put a proper
Anger
label
adjacent.
to.
There's lots of anger adjacent ones.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And
That's
therefore,
sadness,
you...
I suppose.
Yeah, you've just validated a
Yes,
thought
very
I
true.
always thought
No,
that
actually, it's very
guys
true.
don't have the vocabulary. They don't have
we don't have the skill set. And it's interesting because it's now I'm involved with the CBC development process, like a competence-based curriculum, And one thing that the government is cognizant of is that gap in life skills. And they are mainstreaming life skills and things called self-awareness. So being able to know what you're feeling, being able to put a label in it. So giving learners those skills early on in life. So
Because actually, even when you think about it, the way we grew up, because I think we grew up at about the same,
yes.
is that at that point, you went to school to learn your chemistry, your math, your geography, your whatnot.
Get good grades, and that's
But
it.
nobody discussed anything to do with your emotional landscape. Nobody.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
and who would be the teacher, right?
Presumably,
Yeah.
it was your parents. You're supposed
Yeah.
to. Your parents were supposed to take on that. Maybe parents, church, community, and that. So the formal education system never bothered with it, isn't
Yes.
it? But the parents themselves also assumed somebody, I just don't know who, was taking care of it.
Actually, looking back, I think most of our parents didn't have the skill sets as well. Because if you look at the education system and the social system from which they came and transitioned into the city, they had support systems. Because I remember the saying that a child is raised by a village. So cousins, uncles, aunties, there was all that support system where people could process things. But then you come into a system where it is all functional. And
yes, and
either make it or you die of poverty. You remember?
I can see
that was part of the
yeah.
big fear. There was no space for soft issues.
Well, right, and even the soft issues themselves would have been broken down into two things: good or bad.
Yes.
You're not acting right. Now you are acting right. So there's
Yes.
there's no diffusion of vocabulary or breaking it down into like, what is this feeling? It's just bad, and let's get to the good side before we whoop you.
Yes, and if it got too mushy soft, they'll attribute it to, shall I call it religious superstition?
Sure.
Yeah, so-and-so is possessed, so-and-so,
Yeah.
somebody from the village put a curse on him. Or
Yeah.
So that really didn't foster a space for objective handling of emotional issues.
Yeah. I had a funny thing the other day where I was in a bad mood for a pretty good reason. It wasn't a big deal, but I was also reading a book that every morning I'd go have breakfast at this coffee shop, and this particular morning the book took a turn. Everything was about death, so I was already like kind of down, and then I was reading that, and I was like, I'm going to let myself feel all these feelings. But my server, a woman who's there maybe 2 or 3 times a week. She's always a bright, shining light. She's always like, "How are you today? How are you today?" And she saw that I was down. She had zero empathy. She's like, "Well," she just didn't want me to be sad. And I was like, "No, that's kind of where I'm at right now." She's like, "Well, how are you today?" "Well, you need to be happy." And it was like she got real uncomfortable, so she got extra joyful just to try to get me out of it. And I was like, "That's not actually not the way to do it. I need to actually experience this right now. This is very sad." And it made me realize, she was uncomfortable with someone having a bad day.
Yes. And actually, it's interesting you should mention that because negative emotions was actually something that was punishable. Like if you're feeling low and moody and something happens and you want to cry, somebody will say, "We'll beat you and give you a reason to cry." We'll give you a reason to cry.
Yeah.
So
we have a big, huge sign at the top of the stairs.
Yes.
It's a joke. It says the beatings will continue until morale improves.
There you go. So that was the environment that we were coming from. So we didn't have skills to deal with some of these things. And I think maybe if you know about normal distribution, people have different levels of sensitivities and capacities. And probably that's why in our society, once the parents got us to school, we managed to get good jobs, we sorted the survival issues, but now the psychological issues now found space to manifest. So anyway, back to my introduction, then we can get into Vipassana. Then we'll double back to
Yes.
So anyway, so 2010, that's when the relationship was broken, but I'm not feeling what I think I should feel that will propel me to try and make this relationship work. So continue with escapism, but a part of my mind is working on a solution. So did a lot of reading, a lot of research, downloaded a lot of books. I even downloaded, what is it called, the DSM-5. It's
Wow.
like
Just some light reading.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know.
the standardized manual on because I was like, I have
After
to find
a deep
out.
dive, man.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Because again, in campus I studied science, so and essentially I'm a scientist at heart. I need to find the root of something.
Yes.
So I remember reading and everything I read. Yes, they'd list all these similar symptoms, and then give it a label, and then when you go to the cause, it's very speculative, and that didn't sit right with me. So I put a question mark, and I remember during that time I came across one tool that was helpful, and it's almost kind of like Vipassana. It's called CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, where you basically start observing your highs and lows and noting them. So I started doing that from around 2011 into 2012. Yeah. It was kind of helpful, I can say, but still the lifestyle was pretty much the same. And I remember in 2012, part of my ambition and the reason for not wanting to join a big company was the desire for independence, which I had envisioned will be through owning my own business. So at the company where I was working, my ambition was to reach a point where the principal shareholder and boss will give us a piece of the cake and say, okay, yeah, you helped us come to this level, here is something. But of course, it reached a point that seemed to not, wasn't going to, yes. So I felt I've reached a glass ceiling, and I felt the need to venture out. So I ventured out, that is in early 2012. I started doing my own consultancies, and coincidentally, one of the clients for whom I was consulting made me an offer. Told me, he had an advertising agency, a marketing communications company. Told me, hey, why don't you come, let's work together. You set up a research department, you run it, and then after 3 years, you get X%. I was like, okay, that's not a bad idea. It will save me the early stages of building a startup. Yeah. Oh, yes. So I thought, yeah, this is not a bad idea. So I got into marketing communications, which was, okay, I was a hard worker. Anyone who's worked in advertising will tell you it is stressful.
We had, you remember
yes.
Mike Ombua talking about the madness in the ad world?
Yes.
No, I wasn't here that day.
Oh, that Mike was just,
Was it just
this was me. And
Yes.
So we had one of our podcast
Yes.
guests called Michael Ombua.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly the conversation we were having.
Yeah.
He's saying most people, after a while, they're just unwell.
Yeah, very true. And actually, a number of prominent people in that space ended up committing suicide, and that created a bit of awareness in trying to marshal things. So anyway, so I did that for 3 years. Well, looking back, it was an interesting lifestyle. I used to wake up at 4:17 in the morning and be in the office by 5. Work until 6, 7, or sometimes stretch a bit more.
That should be 6 evening.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then weekend, the usual protocols.
Of single malt.
Well, I was a Guinness guy.
Okay.
Yeah, and then now we got into the single malts.
You know, Guinness is heavy fuel.
Yes.
And you go on.
Yeah, so that was the lifestyle. And then at that point, I was co-parenting with the mother of my child. So Sundays used to be my day with the son. So on a Sunday, either he'd be dropped, I'd go pick him up. When I have a hangover, go somewhere, hang out. Then Monday, do that again. Into the third year, when things were just... Actually, the first year and second year, things really went well with the business. So making good money, living in a nice neighborhood, driving a nice car, dressing well and attending all the right functions and rubbing shoulders.
The ad man.
Yeah, actually, it was more of like the strategy guy.
Oh, I
yes.
see.
Because I was doubling up research and strategy. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So of course that puffs up the ego quite a bit, but the issues are still there. During that period, I was still, whenever I'd get time, I'd do my own research, and the research went from basic psychology into spiritual matters. So I remember I studied esoteric stuff. I studied the Upanishads, the Vedas. That's when I started reading books by Buddhism. And of course, having a scientific mind, Buddhism, it struck a chord. It struck a chord.
Yeah.
But still, coming from a Christian background, there's some things that like, no. Yeah, actually, I remember there's this day, the first time I read the Four Noble Truths, and I felt so triggered, like, this Buddha, who does he think he is? Who does he think he is to claim noble truths? So it is. So that was that space, and by 2015, now the third year, 2014, oh yes, the business started experiencing some, the highs and lows of business, and we had a bit of a differing with the principal partner of the business on how to handle that space, that window. My recommendation was we tighten up, because I knew my team, we can tighten our belts and run. The other departments, he was not keen on that. He was like, we need to hire more people who will bring in more business. But I was like, no, looking at what our clients are saying, sales have gone down. So if it's a global, a macro issue, it is best we tighten. So we had a bit of a differing, and he went over my head and did some very expensive hires, which pushed the wage bill of the company by 100% basically.
Without commensurate revenues.
And the revenues were, of course, and one thing I knew is before anyone comes in and they're able to make an impact, it'll take time. No matter how good you are, it'll take time. So within a few months, the business was struggling to pay the heavy salaries, because those were very heavy hires that he had done. And of course, I felt bad because, the hours I was putting in. And of course, the people who've come in are getting a huge chunk, and they have not yet contributed to the business. So it reached a point, and I was like, and I think also with my coping mechanisms, I was like, this is not working. So I told him that I'm out. And I think also a part of me wanted to create space to delve deeper into a solution or whatever my research was digging up, from the psychology, from the spirituality. And you can imagine in an environment where you're working basically 6 days and doing such hours, there's not much space for you to reflect within. And also there are no leave days. So I remember that was 2015. So I decided
that stuff is wild.
Yeah.
It's like whoa, man. It's like you're raving. You're redlining your car.
Always.
Because 6 hours, 6 days a week, and then you're doing those hours.
Yes.
And then every brief, I don't know whether that's the language you use,
Yes.
but I think it is almost always everything that lands on your desk is
yesterday.
like, yes.
Like
The
yesterday.
tension, the stakes are CG, where, and
Yes.
Anyway,
And then you can imagine, it's being a small company, you wear several hats.
yes.
So that's why I needed the extra hours, because between 5 and 8, that was when I could do real work.
Yeah.
But then once 8, phone calls, meetings, emails, that.
Were you-
Mentoring, building people.
Were you also doing the circuit of, because I know, I think in that space there's a lot of partying to entertain
Events,
clients, events and all that.
and parties, all that. Yes. So
You did.
Yes.
Been there, done that.
Okay. Did it very well.
So at that time, what was weighing on you was there a sense of some sort of break, like internal break. Like there's you doing all these things, but but you can't feel yourself. Like who is doing this? Was that the thing that was
Okay, for
was
me,
motivating the research?
Okay, of course, going back to 2010, I was still working on that solution, trying to understand this mind, the tools to basically rein in the mind. Because I realized, oh my,
Chaos.
yes, this mind is.
Yes.
And I remember on the rare occasions where I'd leave the office early and get home, I didn't know what to do. So I'm like, okay, I'm here. It is whatever time. So, and the first thing that will come to mind is go to the bar.
Wow, you had reduced yourself to this one. You only do one. You work and drink.
Yes, you work and drink. So part of my psyche knew that you need to give yourself space to find your proper footing in life. So in between that space also, yes, there's another relationship as well. So started living with this nice lady, lovely lady. Of course, none of us was perfect, and we had our ups and downs, and eventually by 2016 that relationship also ended, and I think that's the point where now I'd reached a point in my life where I felt I need a proper solution. Everything I'd read was telling me the solution is meditation. So at that point I'd tried fasting, I'd taken up yoga, but everything else was just telling me meditation. So of course, next step is let me try and find out how to do meditation. So go onto YouTube.
Sit by yourself.
There are all these guided meditations. I tell you, visualize this, visualize that. I was like, something inside me just told me meditation is simple and straightforward. It's not these fancy things. And I remember on a few occasions I'd find myself actually naturally observing the breath, which, as we'll find out later, is like the entry point of Vipassana meditation. So more research, trying to find out about meditation in Nairobi, how I can learn meditation, because I felt that I need to learn meditation from a competent teacher. So doing all that research, I found, there's a Buddhist temple in Nairobi. Oh, interesting, because I'd also read the Buddhist books. So the day I found the Nairobi Buddhist temple online, I remember it was a Wednesday. Got into the car, went there. It's a wonderful space, quiet space. Found there was this Sri Lankan monk who did not speak English. He just told me, Sunday, head monk. So telling me that on Sunday the head monk will be here. So I went, came back on Sunday, saw the head monk, a wonderful man, Venerable Bante Wimala.
I met Bante.
You've met Bante, yes. So he was giving a talk. So I sat at the back. I remember I still had a hangover. Listened. I was like, okay, yeah, makes sense. You know, the interesting thing with the teachings of the Buddha, there's hardly anything that you can use logic to beat down. So finished the talk, Q&A. I asked a question about some of the experiences I had. I felt the answer was good. The guided meditation was good. So I was like, yeah, this is good. So started attending that for like a year. I also started attending now the classes on Buddhism, and I can say the teachings just flowed naturally. They made sense, because I think having an understanding of the mind and the Buddha's teachings being all about how the mind is structured, how it works.
And being a scientist.
Yes. It all just
being inclined
that analytical approach. So you can say I kind of thrived in that, became active in that community, because I also found there's a community. And the interesting thing is you'd find on the Sunday program, the bulk of the attendance would be shall we call it, without being insensitive, how do you put it?
Oh, you can be insensitive.
Okay. There's this association that Buddhism is an Asian religion. So
Yeah.
you'd expect that the bulk of the population would be Asian, but actually it was blacks like myself, Africans, and Caucasians. I think the expat community is also quite interested in that. So it was a wonderful community. Every Sunday you look forward to it because after the meditation and the Dharma talk, there's some tea and you hang around, you talk. So made some wonderful friends during that period. And that is a time when I reached a point where I wanted to deepen my meditation practice because I could see this thing is working, but just once a week, it's, yeah. So I remember even talking with the Bante, asking him if there are monasteries in Sri Lanka that he could recommend.
Oh, you were that serious?
Yes.
You okay.
Yeah. That he was like, no. Yeah, he was. So after a few months, and now this is 2017, I saw a poster and I was like, Vipassana meditation, what is this? So one of my friends who had been exchanging with told me, you should try this. And it clicked in my head, yeah, definitely I'm going to do this. So that was around September. Yes, September 2017. By that time, of course, I'd restructured my life to do like 5 projects a year alone. The rest of the time is dedicated to this other research. And I'd also now downgraded my lifestyle from State House. I'd moved to Syokimau, which was more manageable.
You sold it to W, you bought a Pro Box. Some people just do bad things to themselves.
Yeah. Yes, so of course signing up for Vipassana, and coincidentally for a number of years, I remember even as early as 2014, I'd been contemplating quitting alcohol. Of course, you could see that when you drink, sometimes you overdrink, you make bad decisions, and all that. So I'd been thinking about it, but I never seemed to be able to crack, like be able to stop. And I think maybe because your circle of friends, it's people who drink, your routine is a routine that favors drinking. So when you sign up for Vipassana, they tell you for a certain period before the course, don't drink. So I was like, okay, I can do that.
Like how long?
It was 2 weeks, 2 weeks before the course. So I was like, and I remember my last drinking night was October 13th. A friend of ours who we grew up with was working at Heineken. So they had one of these functions in Westlands. So of course, free drinks. So of course, partied, went out to Kiza. Yeah, then after that, and so
no withdrawal.
Okay, I wasn't really like,
you were just.
I was not
You're
hooked.
just
It was
drinking.
a lifestyle.
Yeah, it was a lifestyle, but
yes.
no, you're not.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was
No,
not
but this time
physiological.
you could identify the mood.
Yes.
Put a label to it.
Yeah, so I remember the course was starting November 11th. So come November 11th, ride sharing, I call my friend. He drops me along with one other student. She had come from Spain. So I'm there, I'm like, wow.
Was that Kolping?
Yes, at Kolping. So I'm like, wow, this place, what's this going to be like? I thought because I'd been doing some meditation, I'm going to... I'm going to S
bring
this.
it out.
Yeah.
Quick question.
Yes.
So, were you... It's a 10-day program.
Yes.
Can you just maybe give a brief overview of what that... Because it's 10 days, you don't talk, you don't...
Yeah.
So that's what you're walking into.
Yes.
You
So-
were not
Oh,
apprehensive.
this is the thing you do?
Exactly.
This is the thing you do?
Yes, it
And
is.
what's it called again?
Vipassana.
Vipassana
So
meditation.
this is the first. So you're about to enter into Vipassana for the first time.
Yes.
Up until then, you've been doing what?
Just, like 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes at home,
Okay.
randomly here and there.
So 10, 15 minutes of thinking about a particular thing, focusing on breathing.
So focusing on breathing, because at the temple, the meditation you're taught is just to focus on the breath.
So focus on breath only. So it's not a guided thing.
No.
Okay. And so it's something that you did at the temple is something you can also replicate at home.
Yes.
And you've been doing that for like a year and a half at this point?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And then
Inconsistently.
Inconsistently.
Yes.
Okay. And then you were doing it at the temple. So now this Vipassana is now going to happen where?
So Vipassana, it's a residential course. So basically, they get this entire space with accommodation, with dining facilities, and a
Like,
meditation
is
hall.
it nice, or is it like?
Yeah, it's very nice.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
You have
So-
private rooms?
It's a room with 2 beds, so
Okay.
it's shared.
Sure.
Yes.
Every room is 2 beds.
Yes.
I see. And so you're about to embark on this thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So what
of
happened?
course, I read the guidelines for Vipassana. I'm like, wow, okay, this seems tough, but I'm tough. So, of course, first requirement is what they call the 5 precepts in Buddhism. So you are not going to kill anything while there. You're not going to steal anything.
Okay.
Take anything.
All
So
right.
those, of course.
Don't kill, don't steal.
Yeah.
All right.
During that period, of course, no sexual activity
All right.
in any form. Since you're not talking.
So you will be killing your libido.
That's another point. An interesting point. Because some of the experiences
Okay. All right.
you will get into.
All right. We'll put a pin in that.
Just put a pin on
Okay,
that
that's the
to
first 3.
revisit.
Got
It's
it.
a very interesting point. Yeah. So, of
So
course, since you're not talking, you'll not be able to lie to anyone.
Okay. It's in the line. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
And, of course, you're not partaking any intoxicants or drinks.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's
That's
easy.
easy.
Then there's the schedule, the daily schedule,
Uh-huh.
which starts at 4 a.m. in the morning.
All right.
Ding, ding.
There's a red flag.
Yeah. But again, if you look at my history, I used to wake up
Oh
at
yeah,
4 in
for
the
you,
morning.
yeah, you're good.
So
You're
that's-
like, okay, no problem.
That's okay. So wake up at 4 in the morning, do your cleaning, then meditate
How do they
from
wake you up?
4:30. There's a bell that is rung.
Okay.
Ding, ding, ding. So 4:30 to 6:30, you meditate. 6:30 to 7, there's breakfast. Then 7 to 8, you do your cleaning if you need to shower, all that.
Okay.
Then now from 8, you start meditating again till 9, a bit of a break. 9 to 11, more meditation. Then lunch till 12. Then 12, there's a break. And then people who have questions, they can go and ask interviews with the teacher. Then after that, at 1, back to more meditation till 2:30, another break. Then meditation till again 2:30 to 3:30. Then again 3:30 to 5, more meditation. Then 5, there's a tea break. So you have tea, fruits, at least some soothing. Then more meditation for another hour, and then a discourse where now the principal teacher explains the technique and the background, now using various stories. Actually, that was a bit of an enjoyable because he uses jokes and he's a lively teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
W-
So,
And that's a lot of meditating.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Where are you sitting?
So for the 1 hour sessions, you're on the cushion. For the 1.5 hour sessions, you can either stay in the meditation hall on your cushion or in the room.
In your private room,
Yes.
on the cushion.
On the bed, basically.
Oh, on the bed.
Yes.
Oh, that's better.
Uh-huh.
Easier.
Yeah. So
After
another
the discourse,
thing-
there was only a bit of about 30 minutes.
Yes,
Or
about-
about 45 to 30 minutes.
depending on how
So
long
you-
the discourse was, there's another meditation session.
Oh,
So you'd
Yeah.
sleep at about
9:30. Yeah.
That's when you go.
So that's the daily schedule. So I was like, okay.
I
this
think in
is-
total you do about 10.5 hours worth
Yes,
of
if
meditation.
you do all the
if you
Yeah. So here's me on the first day.
Uh-huh.
Of course, registration, all good. By the time you finish the registration, because on the first day you arrive in the afternoon around 3-4 p.m. Do all that, and then by 6 you start some orientation. You're given all the guidelines. You're shown your room, what, and then around 7:30, you go into the meditation hall. Of course, some formalities where now, in the language of Pali, you now, like those 5 precepts that I talked about, you formally make a commitment that
okay.
I'll do this,
Yeah.
I'll do this. And then now you make a formal request to the teacher to teach you the meditation technique. So
may I interject?
Yes.
Somewhere in there you also say that I will be here for 10 days.
yes,
I will
you
not
make a
leave.
commitment.
Okay.
Yes.
But on the 11th day, you can go back to killing and lying.
Yes.
But for
That's up
for
to you.
those 10 days,
You're in that small prison. Yeah.
Okay. Small prison.
Yeah. So I remember the first meditation session. Remember, I thought I'm a superstar at meditation, having come from.
Yeah, right.
The moment I sat down on the cushion, not even 5 minutes, my knees were on fire.
Wait, why? What's so different?
I think the environment is kind of different. It makes you more sensitive, so you feel more of whatever is going on through you.
Like sitting on these podcast chairs.
Yeah. So, and one thing now you get to learn as you do the technique is the mind has, the untrained mind has two default, go-tos, craving and aversion. Craving for pleasant experiences and aversion towards unpleasant experiences. So our entire psychological makeup, unconscious psychological makeup, is rooted in this.
A version of negativity and
So I'll give an example is, if you can say a smell.
okay.
The smell of a chapati, pleasant.
Okay, yeah.
Or let's say food, the taste of food.
Right.
Yeah. Sweet, you want more. A medicine or a bitter herb. And so there's an entire science that they explain on how now the mind is structured and why it behaves that way. And one thing they say about the Vipassana meditation is that your grosser or heavier tendencies of mind will manifest on the body. And they manifest as pain. And the training is to sit with it, objectively observing it. So I remember, my first Vipassana course was tough, because you can imagine now, looking at my history, the amount of unresolved issues that I had built up, which reminds me of one thing. For me to get the energy to focus, I remember I would consciously generate an angry thought.
Right?
Can you imagine?
That was like your pleasure thing? It's just
Kind of like
okay.
BDSM.
Goodness gracious.
A bit of a masochist, yeah. And, yeah, that was weird, but I remember I'd sit in the office, and if I felt that the mind is wavering, I'd get myself angry at something, and that energy will get the mind focused.
Wow.
And I'd be
Wow.
So why this is not sustainable now was evident during the Vipassana course, because you're basically just piling up a lot of that heavy emotions. And the science is any emotion you experience stays on the body, especially if you don't process it.
The body keeps the score.
The body keeps the score. That's why people with trauma, you'll find their bodies will automatically do something, because that, if you can call it energy or whatever, stays in the body. So that is what I was experiencing. And I remember, and they're trying, you're told, you can change your posture as many times as you want. So I'm trying this posture, oh my back. And then the people, the older students, you see, they're just...
They're almost like, they're mocking you.
Yeah. So you can imagine my little
are.
ego is like, no, this can't be. And the more agitated the ego gets, the more painful it becomes. So I recall on the third day of the course,
I'm already exhausted.
Yeah, I had a bit of an experience, and the teacher, Melanie, she used a very interesting time. It's good now that you've had your little explosion. So now going back to what you talked about, libido. So on the third morning, and I remember it was 3-something. I don't know what about the meditation, and later on when you talk to other students, they attested the same. I experienced nocturnal emission.
Oh, wow.
We try to be
I haven't had
to
one of those
use
in a while.
soft language.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other way to say it. Well, there's lots of ways to say it, but that's
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. And I was like, what?
I thought that shut off at 19.
And I was active out there.
Right.
I wasn't a monk.
Right, yeah.
So I was like, whoa, what is this? Because the urge came so, like a wave of lust just poured through the body.
Yes.
Mhm. And I remember at
Get
night.
the poison out.
Yeah. So on that third morning, during the morning meditation from 8 to 9, so I'm there seated trying to, of course, focus on the breath. So many things I'm experiencing that I've never experienced before in the body. Remember, emotions you feel on the body, but previously we didn't know how to feel things on the body. So here I am, the body's experiencing so many sensations that I don't know how to feel. I started feeling some warmth in this area, started feeling emotional, misty.
Teary, a bit of...
And then I felt like something big is coming as the tears started flowing.
Yeah.
So just got up out of my cushion, ran to the toilet.
Seriously.
Yes.
Okay. A man shouldn't cry.
And well, look at this man with this little beard.
Yeah.
And I actually wailed. I think I wailed.
Oh, you did?
Wow. That was which
I
day?
know.
That was the day after the emission?
Day 3. No, the
Alright.
day, the morning after the emission.
Yeah. The monks have a bowl and pestle, and they're putting blue pills in your tea.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know.
So here I am in the toilet, wailing tears, my nose running. And it's like so much was coming out. And I remember just saying, I surrender. I don't know to. And I remember part of my mind asking myself, to who are you saying this? Because by that point, I had abandoned the notion of God as a personal being.
Right.
So I asked myself, okay, so to who are you saying this? So I did that. And then...
Did it get easier from that?
Yeah, it felt so cathartic.
Yeah.
Just felt light. So cleaned myself up, came out, one of the servers. So one thing about Vipassana course, they are volunteer servers who serve you the food, cook the food, basically manage any needs that you have.
Uh-huh.
So one of them was, oh, are you okay? Is everything okay? And I remember feeling so light and even smiling. And like, yeah, I just processed it. So after that, I went to see the teacher. So the teacher asked me, oh, yeah, so what happened? I told her, I said, it's good that you've had your little explosion. Little explosion?
Yeah. Which one are you referring to?
Yeah, of course. The emotion. I didn't
Are
tell
there
her about
cameras
the
in the room?
I didn't tell her about the other one. Yeah. So she gave me, of course, some pointers, told me about how, yes, it's normal for that to happen. Yeah, and told me that now, that the following day, we'd now start the skill of observing sensations in the body without reacting.
Let me just interject with something. So just to explain a bit. So there's 3 parts to the meditation. There is something called sila, which is that bit about observing those precepts. You remember the 5 precepts you talked about?
Yeah.
They don't do this, don't do that. Yeah. And then the next one is called anapana, which is to concentrate it helps to concentrate the samadhi, but you achieve that concentration to the mind through anapana meditation, which is a type of meditation where you focus exclusively on your breath, natural breath.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you do that for 3 days. Remember, it's a 10-day program.
Right.
So the first 3 days, you just focus on your breath.
Yes.
Now, the fascinating thing for me was how it sounds very simple. Like, dude, sit there, just focus your attention on breathing and how you breathe in and out. You try doing that. your mind literally goes mad.
Yeah.
It is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, jumping all over the place.
Your mind is such. The teacher, he calls it your mind. You will discover your mind is a monkey mind. It is a monkey mind. Then on the third day, you go to the next stage, which is like now the main sort of offering, so to speak, the main course, which is Vipassana. Yeah. So the thing is called Vipassana, but it has these other components in it as well. Yes. Okay. So when you go over the first, once you have done the samadhi, the focus on your breath, the mind, your mind sort of becomes super very sharp, sensitive. Very sensitive mind. Now you're able to use that mind to track the mind. I mean, but you explain.
Actually, that's what it as. You keep the mind here. You go from just being aware of the general breath to start feeling the air as it goes in and as it comes out. And then at some point, you even stop feeling the air and the attention, it gets fixed to like something as small as a hair. You can actually feel a single hair, how it is shaking, being moved by the air. So in tandem with that level of sensitivity, for me, I noticed also other senses started becoming sensitive.
Very amplified, eh?
Yeah, like the sense of hearing, sense of smell. It became so sharp, so attuned. I remember I could tell who is coming into the hall when they're outside just by their footsteps. And whether they're wearing a jeans, a track, or... So I found that very interesting. And another bit about the technique that now which you learn later is the mind is used to wandering all over and doing whatever it wants.
Sure.
Now you're trying to force it to stay. It will rebel. So there are various ways that it rebels. And some of them manifest as those pains. Sometimes you're seated there. Another thing about the meditation is that there's the segregation of men and women. So accommodation, dining hall, even how you get to the meditation hall. But now in the meditation hall, gents are on one side, ladies are on one side. But of course, the mind being the mind, it will look for its usual objects of whatever patterns it's used to. And I recall...
Gotcha.
It'll pick a nice-looking lady. So you're there, observing the breath. When the mind feels the pain is too much, come here, lady. Let's start a relationship. You'll even get married, have kids, get divorced. While you're still seated there, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And actually, I have a friend who confessed to milking his shots while on the meditation cushion. So it can get that intense.
Wow.
Yeah.